Welcome to Sponsored Post Podcast, behind the lens of how influential content is made. I am Justin Moore. I'm the founder and CEO of Trending Family, which is an influencer marketing agency that launches campaigns with family-friendly influencers. Today, I am so excited to be joined by Corey Weiss, who is on the founding team and the head of business development at Ipsy. Corey has many years of experience as a digital and social media strategist, leveraging consumer insights and delivering marketing solutions that bridge online, social media, mobile, gaming, email, search, advertising, and maximize consumer engagement. Welcome, Corey.
Thank you, Justin. Great to be here.
Absolutely. Great to have you. So why don't we kick it off by, if you could just share kind of your background and your story about how you got into this space.
Great. Well, my background has always been at the intersection of entertainment and digital media. I started my career in the studio system working for Disney and early carved out an opportunity to focus on their websites and their digital presence. And it kind of evolved from there. So I've been in the space for a while, and obviously the space continues to evolve. But most currently, I'm here at Ipsy.
Interesting. And so how has influencer marketing changed since you first got into this?
Well, it's changed quite a bit. It's interesting. The category really hasn't been around that long. I'd say 10 plus years at most. Influencer marketing really started out as YouTubers. I was working for an ad agency in the mid 2000s when Michelle Phan's manager at the time reached out to me and said, I have this YouTuber. She's blowing up. She's getting tons of views, and I really don't know what to do with her. And at that time, I was able to help Michelle with her early relationships with both brands and agencies and was responsible for helping her with her initial sponsored posts. So it all started out as YouTubers, because back then that was really the main and only platform that people were creating content on. And then it changed from influencers, and then now to what here at Ipsy we refer to influencers as creators, because they're not just influencing behavior, but also creating content.
And how were brands and agencies feeling about creators at that time in terms of was there a lot of education that you needed to do? Obviously, Michelle Phan was a cutting edge, bleeding edge creator, right? Like she was doing things that not a lot of other people were doing. And so did you find that it was difficult to explain to those early advertisers about the value of working with someone like her?
Yeah, there definitely was certainly a responsibility that we took on here at Ipsy to educate brands and advertisers on the value of working with YouTubers and influencers. It was a new platform. They didn't really get it. A lot of times when you're dealing with advertisers, they might be outside the demo that actually uses and consumes the platform. So it really required to explain to them not only how the platforms work, but also why. And then in addition, to find an equivalent way to explain it to them that made sense to them. Using a certain media math, if you will, to help them wrap their arms around how that compared to traditional advertising that they were currently buying.
Tell me a little bit about the founding of Ipsy, because it's quite commonplace now to have influencers or creators basically forming their own startups, right? Like clothing companies or cosmetic brands or things like that. But when Ipsy started, that was pretty cutting edge for a creator to create something outside of themselves. So that showed a lot of insight, I think, to do something so early. So tell me a little bit about how Ipsy started.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think we're in a great time and era where the playing field is leveled. When you think about the history of media, or even in the last 50 years, if you wanted to create content, you'd have to go to one of the major networks or one of the major studios, and you were completely dependent on them wanting to create your content. But with digital media and digital cameras, editing software being readily available, now anyone can be a creator and anyone could really create content. So with Ipsy, I had been working with Michelle Phan, and as I mentioned, her videos were getting a tremendous amount of views. And she was approached by the co-founder and CEO of Ipsy, a gentleman by the name of Marcelo Camberos, who reached out to her and was very well aware of the views she was getting. And she said, Corey, can you please go talk to this guy and find out exactly what he wants? So Marcelo and I sat down and we realized that not only was Michelle getting tons of views, but people were asking her exactly what lipstick, what eyeliner, what palette she was using to create her looks and identified an opportunity to create a business around that.
Amazing. And so you talked a little bit about kind of the importance of content for commerce. And that was something that Ipsy seized on very early on. And so, I think the lines have kind of been blurring. I mean, is that helpful? Is it hurtful? I mean, just kind of talk about like how that's evolved in terms of, you look at the inspirational commerce element on Instagram versus other platforms. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that the lines have definitely blurred, but I think that consumers are extremely smart and they understand when people are not being authentic. So with the advent of the FTC and content needing to be FTC compliant, there was this concern that it would be the end of influencer content because people would know that it was sponsored. There are ways around that, however, although now those FTC regulations and the need to be compliant have been around for a while, it really hasn't caused a complete explosion, if you will, in the creator space, but rather if creators and influencers are authentic and honest with their audiences and they choose to work with brands that they genuinely like and have been working with for a while, that audiences don't see that as a problem if they're actually getting paid for that content. So it certainly has evolved, but with authenticity and creating content that delivers value and does not feel transactional, it has not caused a decline in engagement and viewership for influencers.
You talked a little bit about how, when Michelle was first making videos that people kind of secondarily, it probably wasn't a focus of hers initially, but people were just asking like, oh, like what products are you using? I want to go out and buy it. And so that was kind of an afterthought. And so I'm curious now, like, do you feel like a lot of content is planned based on trying to create this path to purchase or conversion? I got to imagine that that's part of Ipsy's model in terms of the content that you create. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that you cannot plan or create content with conversion in mind. Of course, that's still the objective of most brands. Obviously, they want consumers to purchase their product, but it could be argued that it's one of the most overused words in the influencer space, which is authenticity. But when content is authentic and people are honest about using products and why they love products, and they deliver value in showing how they use the products, people are forgiving and audiences won't see that as a detriment to the content.
Interesting. And talk a little bit about Ipsy's use of influencers from the very beginning, because you and I go quite a ways back, because my wife, April, did some content for Ipsy like way back in the day. I think it was like many years ago. I don't remember exactly what year, but I mean, Ipsy definitely saw like the use of creators as pretty integral to the brand DNA early on. And so how did you know that that was the right approach to take in the beginning?
Yeah, so we do position Ipsy as the beauty company of the creator movement. Creators are in the DNA of what we do. As I mentioned, the company was co-founded by Michelle Phan. So creators have always been front and center. And as you mentioned, April, I believe it was probably 2013 or 2014 that April first got involved with Ipsy. Right out of the gates, we were partnering closely with influencers and have put ourselves as a creator-first company. I think because we understand their needs and because we trust and truly partner with creators and establish relationship with creators, that we do have this authentic relationship that comes across that way to our audiences. But as I mentioned, we knew based on Michelle and the feedback she was getting from her audience, and then of course from the additional creators we launched with. So when we launched Ipsy in November of 2011, this month marks the 8-year anniversary of the company. We launched with Michelle Phan, Promise Phan, Andrea Brooks, Bethany Moda, and Jessica Harlow. All of them still are creators and all of them are still active. But from those very early stages, we realized the power of creators.
It definitely seemed like a lot of those early Ipsy creators blew up quite a bit because of their association with Ipsy. I know you guys invested quite a bit in them in terms of like studio space and like production support and things like that. And so that was pretty amazing because not only did Ipsy grow, but those creators themselves actually grew as a result of being associated, I think. Was it difficult getting those early creators on board with the idea of working with Ipsy?
Yeah, it's funny. I think there's always been an attraction to creators to partner with Ipsy. As I mentioned, when we started, it was with Michelle, and fortunately, no one in the beauty community at that time really knew who Corey Weiss was. So it was very advantageous to be able to say, that I work with Michelle Phan and Ipsy works with Michelle Phan to get people to take our calls and to take it seriously. I often joke that in the early days of Ipsy, and I'd call people and say, "This is Corey Weiss with Ipsy," they would say to me, "Oh, I love Etsy." And I'd have to clarify that we're Ipsy, not Etsy.
Right.
Fast forward 8 years where Ipsy's become a household name and people really know us. And as a result, creators like to work with us. And part of that is companies really and brands really need to understand the appropriate way to work with influencers and creators. And that's to really give them full creative latitude. And once you hire them because you love them and because of their audience and because of what they stand for, let them do what they do and don't put too much control on their content. Because of that, and because of the success we have had here, as you may recall, when I opened up Ipsy Studios in 2014, I recruited into the company Desi Perkins, Crispy, Katie DeGroot, Luster Lux, and Kristen Dominique, who now are arguably four of the largest beauty influencers in the space. People did want to come to Ipsy because there was this perception and belief that if they also partner with us, they would have similar success. And for me, it's been a great pleasure and honor to work with some of these great influencers and contribute to their success.
Amazing. And so why do you think that influencers are so critical to the beauty space in terms of this new type of marketing, new type of promotion? I mean, arguably cosmetic brands were among the first to kind of do influencer marketing. I mean, we look at the massive success of the crazy media event that Shane Dawson and Jeffree Star created, right? What is it about this industry that makes it so different from others?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, influencers are so important to beauty because beauty is a very, very visual industry and people need to see it to understand. The other thing is it requires some skill and it requires technique. And as a result, that's why tutorials and instructional videos and get ready with me videos are so important. Lastly, we're all unique individuals and we come in different shapes and sizes and colors. And in beauty, there's an opportunity for people to look for influencers that are similar to them and can teach them how to do makeup and looks that are appropriate for their ethnicities or skin types.
Talk a little bit about the importance of this platform that you've created, right? I mean, you've obviously evolved as a brand and you now are able to help other brands kind of tap into your distribution. So can you share a little bit of insight about how you think about brand partnerships?
Absolutely. Ipsy is a very unique platform and it's one that we've built over time. And to share some numbers that kind of help people understand kind of the scale of what we're doing, we now have over 25 million people in our community. Those are people that have gone to Ipsy.com, taken a beauty quiz, and have opted in and participate across our channels. We have over 3.5 million subscribers to our offerings. We currently have 3 offerings, which is Glam Bag Plus, and Glam Bag Ultimate. We deliver over 500 million views a month. We have our creator community, which now has over 8,000 creators involved. So we have tremendous reach. We distribute in North America, US and Canada, but we literally can reach to all ends of the globe. So with this massive platform, we have the opportunity for brands to plug in and actually deliver their product to people that have raised their hands and told us that they want specific things, whether it be mascara, eyeliner, lipstick, highlighters, whatever that might be.
So with this platform that you've created, in addition to that, all the different social platforms that you guys are active on and your creators are posting on, talk about how your strategies have had to change based on the decline in organic engagement and how that affects your overall audience development strategy.
Sure. One of the things in the creator space, whether you're a brand, a platform, or a creator or influencer, is the need to continue to evolve and continue to innovate. So our strategies have changed over the years based on the introduction of new social platforms. So as I mentioned earlier, when we launched the company, they were referred to as YouTubers because that was the only platform. Then we saw the rise of Instagram. Facebook came back and has gone through various iterations. It went from being a closed platform to being opened up, and then people thought it was the platform their parents were on, and then has kind of had a revitalization to younger audiences. Now TikTok is also rearing its head, and one that's definitely involved in a lot of conversations. One thing that we have done is we look at various platforms and each one serves a different purpose. You also talk about kind of the decline in organic engagement. All influencers have in mind the algorithm and the mysterious algorithm that these various platforms have. And everybody thinks they're battling the algorithm and trying to figure out how to game the algorithm. And there are ways to approach it to create content that the algorithm favors. So you can get those organic views. But yeah, the platforms have grown. The number of people on platforms have grown. There definitely has demanded a different way to approach it to still get that same engagement.
Is it something that keeps you up at night, or you just view it as part of the game? I mean, like, how critical do you think it is to Ipsy's long-term success, being able to have a handle on the social platforms?
It absolutely is important. And it's certainly something that keeps us up. We depend on the platforms. We are definitely a social company that has depended on leveraging the platforms to build audiences and to convert customers. We spend a lot of time. We have relationships with all the platforms, and they actually look to us as well as they're developing their platforms and developing their services and introducing new features of how we could benefit from it as well, and thus share those benefits with our community of creators and brands.
Right. And then I would imagine, obviously, you've diversified your business as a result. You mentioned Ipsy Studios, and you also have like a pretty big events and experiential business. So talk a little bit about how that's evolved.
Sure. Ipsy from day one has definitely never been a one-trick pony. We have never been just about the beauty subscription service, but rather have had several layers to what we do, several ways for people to stay involved and engaged. So we try to stay ahead of the curve. We try to innovate. We often see in the space that a lot of people try to do what Ipsy does. They say that, imitation is the highest form of flattery. So we definitely see it that way. And as you mentioned, events and experiential is one thing that we do. So it's been a key component since we started. And we launched our first event was back in 2013. We did something called Gem Beauty. And I think April might even have attended that original one in Los Angeles. And that's because we realized we had this massive community. We're building this massive community that was always engaging on social media. But we wanted to provide an opportunity in real life for people to get together, for the community to come together, to be able to take selfies, to give each other hugs, to meet your favorite brands, to meet your favorite influencers, and really engage. And events and experiential is a super important component of Ipsy. We last month had a very successful event called Ipsy Live in New York, where we had over 40 brands and over 4,000 people attend workshops, panels, and really create something meaningful for people to come out and participate in.
Mm-hmm. That part of your business, is it something that you are pitching front and center to your brand partners, or do you view that as more of a kind of an ancillary revenue stream to the business itself?
Nothing here at Ipsy operates in a vacuum. We pitch everything holistically. We take a 360 approach, and we know that when you leverage and capitalize on the complexities of Ipsy, that includes community, experiential, creators, sampling, that it works the best. So when we sit down with our brand partners, we really dive in to understand their objectives and how they're going to measure success with Ipsy and develop a program that's custom crafted for them. And most often it includes experiential or participating in our events.
Interesting. And so talk a little bit about how important diversity and inclusivity is to your business. I mean, you mentioned that that's one of the reasons that consumers gravitate to influencers in general, because they're trying to find someone that looks like them. or, they can identify with. And so how have you integrated that into the ethos of the brand?
This is something that we've integrated into the ethos of the brand since day one. Diversity and inclusivity has always been important. And not just to check off a box and say, oh, we're supporting diversity and inclusivity, but really to drive deep engagement, deep representation of all groups. And I think we've done a pretty successful job at that. We have a very diverse community. If you look at any of our channels or our platform, you'll see that all types of people are represented, all types of people are participating and sharing. And it really has become critical in the beauty category. I think what Rihanna did in 2017 with launching Fenty and developing a line that has diverse shade ranges was really an amazing thing. People are now hopefully starting to walk the talk. It's not just, oh, we are diverse and inclusive, but actually ensuring that it's part of the ethos, part of the DNA of their culture and their brands. And that's something that we pride ourselves on here at Ipsy.
Interestingly, it seems as though there is this element of collectability around a lot of beauty products, especially ones that, are coming from consumers' favorite influencers. If you think about the utility of like a palette or something, right? Like, how many palettes does someone need, right? And yet their favorite influencer comes out with their next eyeshadow palette or something like that. And from a collectability standpoint, it's like they have to have it, And I'm not sure that dynamic exists in a ton of other industries. And so one other thing I'm curious of is about personalization, because you've mentioned previously that there's, I think you said something like 1,000 versions of Glam Bag that go out each month. And so talk a little bit about how critical that is to the success of Ipsy.
Yeah, sure. So just to address your first statement around palettes and products that are collectible from their favorite creators, yes, there always will be. I mean, we see even with James Charles, who launched his own palette, which continues to sell out. It's a beautiful palette, but truth be told, are most people that purchase it going to use every color in that diverse range? Probably not, but it is from a beloved creator, and it's something that they want to own. Then your question about personalization. Personalization, again, if creators are at the core of what we do, personalization is at the core of what we do. The parent company is actually called Personalized Beauty Discovery, and we drive everything we do based on personalization. And that's because beauty is not one size fits all. And some people have bold looks and some people have natural looks. And we want to personalize our experience to ensure that we're delivering products and brands that suit your needs. And yes, there are over 1,000 variations of the Glam Bag each month, so that you and your best friend and your best friend's friend will all be getting different bags based on your beauty profile. And based on the data that we collect, we are able to personalize the experience. Not only is personalization very important, Ipsy, but so is customization. As much as we do the best job we can on personalizing your experience, we also want to give you an opportunity to have a hand in customizing your experience. We recently launched something called Choice, which allows our members to come in and actually choose one of their products each month. And then based on their choice, we could also inform the other products that come in their bag.
You've mentioned previously that you're also able to kind of mine the millions of product reviews that you've had over the life of the company. And I think you said something like over 5 million product reviews each month, right? Which is just a staggering amount of data. And so how do you crunch that and use it? Are you going out speculatively? Are you going out to some brand partners and be like, hey, like, look at all these reviews and all this commentary around your products. Like, do you want us to help you, with product development, or like, how are you using that data?
Yeah, it absolutely is a point of differentiation for working with Ipsy. And I love to share, and I'm glad you brought that up. So we generate over 5 million product reviews a month, which is more than Yelp. And that is all based on reviews. So it really is an impressive number. And it's led to over 150 million reviews since we launched the company. And all of those data points, and we've collected over 100 billion with a B data points since the start of the company, we put into our algorithms. We also invest very heavily into engineering. We have over 100 engineers that are working on machine learning, artificial intelligence to better perfect our ability to personalize the experience. And that has paid off significantly for us and really is one of the main contributors to our continued success and growth.
What do you think will be the fate of the incumbent beauty and cosmetic brands? I mean, you saw Drunk Elephant get acquired recently by Shiseido. There's just so many direct-to-consumer brands that are trying to get into this space, so many creators and influencers creating their own brands. What are your thoughts on how this industry is going to continue to evolve?
Yeah, it's interesting. It kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about content, where now it's a wide open playing field for anyone to enter in terms of creating content. And the same holds true now with creating brands. It used to be where the majors held all the control of what brands could be introduced. But now, with companies out there helping with the development of direct to consumer brands, helping with creator brands, we're seeing tons of new brands being introduced into the marketplace. There was a really interesting article from Women's Wear Daily recently that talked about this and talked about this kind of flood of new brands, and that if it ultimately would have adverse effects because there's too many choices, there's too many creator brands. Like, what do you choose? So that goes back to, again, what's really important, and that is creating brands that are differentiated, creating brands that fill a white space, and creating brands that consumers are asking for. And we also, this month, Ipsy launched its first owned and operated brand called Complex Culture. And it's something that we can do successfully because of all of the data that we have and knowledge that we have and engagement that we have with our community of 25 million plus people, that we can identify those white spaces and we can identify the specific products that they're yearning for and then fulfill those demands.
Incredible. So what do you think is next for the future of influencer marketing?
Well, it's funny because I think if anyone can claim to know the future, they're probably lying to you. We can look at the short-term future. I'll call it the 3 A's. I think there are 3 A's that are important. One I mentioned already, which is authenticity, and still being true, being transparent with brands, with influencers, with your audiences, of speaking from the heart and providing authentic opinions. The second A I would say is accountability, is people taking responsibility for their actions, for their content, for their channels, and really leaning in. And the last one is authoritative. We all can't claim to know everything, but there's certain categories and areas where we can be authoritative and really be experts. And I think that's very important for influencers to understand. You don't have to be all things to all people, but everybody has qualities and traits that differentiate them from others. Bigger is not better. And there has been a shift where brands are getting smarter, audiences are getting smarter, and it's not just about who has the most followers. We're looking at what's happening with Instagram and removing likes. It's not about who has the most likes. So it's who has the content, who is sharing information that is most important to audiences. And it really helps level the playing field and give all creators a chance to find audiences that can relate to what they're doing and identify with what they're doing.
Interesting. And so one thing I'm wondering is, you mentioned kind of this saturation of so many brands entering the marketplace. I mean, there also is this feeling by a lot of both influencers and consumers that influencer marketing is very saturated, whether you're scrolling your Instagram feed and you're seeing sponsorship upon sponsorship. Do you think we'll see more of a shift towards influencers no longer promoting other brands, but rather creating their own?
Well, no, I actually don't think we'll see that shift of them just creating their own. One, because it's not easy to launch a brand. And
Right.
it's not easy to be an influencer. And those are the biggest misconceptions. It's funny that people say, oh my God, why can't I get paid for putting on makeup? I wear makeup. Well, if it was that easy, I mean, literally everybody would be an influencer. So you can't discount or diminish what it takes to be a successful influencer. And the same goes for a brand. Just because now, conceivably, you can go to a contract manufacturer and create a lipstick or create a palette or a mascara, doesn't mean it's good, and it doesn't mean it's going to be successful. So there still are going to be the people that we'll need to rely and look to the top brands to include in their content. And I think, as we discussed earlier, it's not just going to be the brands that are coming from the ELCs, the Shiseidos or L'Oreals of the world, but we're going to see these emerging brands where the timeline has been truncated to be successful, whether it be a Drunk Elephant or a Too Faced or a Glam Glow or some of these companies that have been acquired in relatively short periods of time.
Interesting. Well, Corey, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been super interesting. How can people contact you? How can brands who are listening get in touch with you?
Yeah, I love to make myself available. It's one of the things I really enjoy about this industry. And I think it's about giving back. And I think there's tons of opportunities. So I personally, whenever I can help another brand or influencer be successful, I'm happy to do so. So probably the best way to find me is on Instagram. My handle is Spin You Around. And they're more than welcome to reach out. I'm more than welcome to share my experience, my knowledge, and get them introduced to Ipsy or any other way that I can help them out.
Fantastic. You've just listened to the Sponsored Post podcast with your host, Justin Moore. You can subscribe to hear more great interviews and episodes via Apple and Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information on Trending Family, you can visit trendingfamily.com. See you next time.